I'm
Sure.
62 years old.
Right.
Why is it such a struggle just to climb the stairs and maintain my balance? I wasn't working out. My legs were weak, and I just felt, I'm like, I feel like an old man. And I remember thinking, this is just not right. Something is going on here. This is ridiculous. Something's got to give. I can't keep doing this. I don't want to live like this.
Hi, I'm Mark Perry, founder of BuiltLean, and I just did a podcast with Tony Miller, who's a 62-year-old BuiltLean client. He dropped over 20 pounds and is really an inspiration, right, for his family, his friends, to stay fit as you age. Here it is. I hope you enjoy it.
You're glad to be able to share any information that might hopefully, be encouraging or helpful to anybody else watching this, listening to this.
Awesome. Awesome. And so, first question, Tony, is listen, a lot of guys, maybe there's in high school or college, you're super fit, you're an athlete, nothing can stop you. And then things start to change, right? And then,
Absolutely.
so can you tell me a little bit more about your kind of background and how things started to kind of shift or when they started to shift? Of course, I've read a lot about, like, I know about you, we've coached you, but just for people listening, like, talk a
Sure.
little bit about your background.
Well, I guess for a lot of people right now, 2023, COVID happened.
Right.
And I think for me, even before COVID, actually, things started to change because of job wise. I worked for a large investment bank and actually changed jobs, went to a smaller firm, and the responsibilities shifted with that. I took on more responsibility, a lot more responsibility. So the hours spent working just became tremendous. So that was the first shift.
So, by the way, can you
Yeah.
adjust a camera just so we can see you? We want to see your lovely face, Tony. So,
Hold on,
okay,
let's
so
see.
continue. So, obviously, so
Yeah.
more responsibility. By the way, I've heard that before. So, continue.
Okay, so took on a lot more responsibility work wise. I mean, my kids are grown, so that wasn't an issue. So with increased responsibility, it meant less time to do some of the things I'd enjoyed doing before. Play a lot of tennis. I liked working out, even if the working out part of it was not very regimented and disciplined. The fact was, I was playing a lot more tennis, and most of that just got pushed to the side because of work responsibilities. Then COVID happened. And somehow with COVID, you figure, okay, you're at home, you're going to have more time to go to the gym and so on and so forth. Somehow that just did not happen. For some reason, it felt like I was working way more hours working from home than I did when I was going into the office. Just couldn't disconnect. Not to mention, you're at home, the kitchen is right downstairs. So whatever that brought with it happened to me. So within a space of, beginning of 2020 to the next couple of years after that, I just started gaining a lot of weight. Fine, I'm at home, I could go for walks, but that wasn't consistent. But that's really what happened. That's when it took a turn for the worse for me. And I just blew up.
Right. So, a major lifestyle change as a result of COVID. That's what we're
Yeah.
getting at.
Yes.
Okay. And what else changed about your, specifically your eating and your exercise?
Well, okay. So I not exercising. I'm not playing as much tennis as I used to. Whatever singles tennis I used to play, now I'm playing doubles. Couldn't find guys who wanted to play singles anymore. And that kind of happened, I guess, was starting to happen even before COVID. It seemed like once guys get to like past 40, 45, for some reason they don't want to play singles anymore. So we started playing more doubles. So my activity level dropped. I'm eating the same, if not more, because I'm at my desk all day. And it's funny, my wife sent me a picture once on my phone, and it was a picture of a guy sitting on, excuse me, a toilet working, because she says that's probably the only time I ever get up, barely to go to the bathroom. The fact was, I was just working long hours and I would just get up, go eat, come back, get up, eat, come back. Sometimes she'd bring me something to eat. And sometimes that my eating habits was totally thrown off. Sometimes I wouldn't even eat lunch. And then late in the evening, when I tried to disconnect, I'd go downstairs because I'm just ravenous at this point. And I used to order out a lot, one of these apps, whatever you use to order food, or I'd go pick something up. And I'd always get more than I needed to eat. And the excuse was, well, this is from when, I can't order or I'm busy. I just have it on reserve. And I was overeating because it never stayed for the reserve for the tomorrow or whenever. And I was eating late. I just fell into a really, really bad place with food. And, my mom used to have a saying when I was younger, the more you eat, the more you're going to want to eat. And that's what was happening. My appetite became real wide. Yeah, and it's funny. When I was a kid, people are not going to. I could not gain weight. I never, ever in my life had to worry about gaining weight. I remember at one point they had to put me on medication just to gain weight. And
Wow.
then as I got older, that totally changed. Whatever happened to my metabolism, I'm totally flipped. But my mindset hadn't changed with it. Okay, you're gaining weight. You need to do something. I still had the mentality of a young 20-year-old or teenager, but my body was different. So I couldn't eat the way I wanted to eat. I never counted calories or was ever concerned about what I ate in my life. But
Interesting. So let's talk about, okay, so when did you hit that point where you're like, I've got to make a shift? It's like something's got to change.
climbing the stairs to go upstairs or go down the stairs. Okay, I'm an older guy now. I don't know if I need to tell you my age, but
Yeah,
sure.
sure.
I'm 62 years old.
Right.
And I was going up the stairs, going down the stairs. My back hurt, my knees hurt. I felt lethargic. I just felt this. Why is it such a struggle just to climb the stairs and maintain my balance? I wasn't working out. My legs were weak, and I just felt, I feel like an old man. And I remember thinking, this is just not right. Something is going on here. This is ridiculous. And it felt like just climbing the stairs, just going up a flight of stairs to go upstairs or to go down to the kitchen. And one day it dawned on me, no, something's got to give. I can't keep doing this. I don't want to live like this. And I just got really frustrated with myself. And I said, no, it's time for, in addition, I remember going to the doctor for my annual checkup because my job kind of required it for insurance coverage so I could get, preferred rates. And I remember the doctor using this terminology, pre-diabetic, in the same sentence with my name. I'm like, what? Pre-what? Pre-diabetic. I'm like, what do you mean pre-diabetic? Nothing you got to worry about, he said. And but I'm going to put you on this medication. Swear. I'm like, okay. And then, several months later, I went back and he used the term pre-diabetic as well. And he says, how is that med going? I'm like, okay, I'm taking the meds. And he said, okay. And he got the blood test, sent the results a week or so later. Okay, my cholesterol was back. It was down. So my cholesterol was high. I was pre-diabetic. And it was at that point, I said, okay, it was like November, December that year when I did that. And then it was on a January time frame that in my mind, I don't usually make New Year's resolutions. But I said, okay, I got to do something. And I think that's when I reached out to you guys.
I was just about to ask you. Okay, so that's a powerful. So a lot of guys, they get that kind of conversation with their doctor, and that sometimes is a big impetus for them making a change. And so, I guess original question is, how did you find out about BuiltLean? Originally, was it from my dad?
Yes, it was. It was
Oh my
from
God,
your dad.
that's hilarious.
It was from your dad.
That's
probably
amazing.
15 years prior to that. Yeah,
that's
I had your business card. He gave it to me. It was in my wallet. And quite honestly, it was like, I'm like, okay, save this for later. This is my backup plan.
That is hilarious, man. And so okay, so it's January. And what made you be like, okay, let me reach out to Mark and BuiltLean and this team? Like what was the spark where you're like, okay, let me reach out to BuiltLean?
Well, I had subscribed to get your information. So I was following you. I would read your articles, which I thought was very interesting, very well informed. I was never a fitness guru or anything. I just did it. I used to over the years. But your articles very interesting to me. It, and the thing was, it never just addressed working out. I would read some of your articles that talked about um, food, eating, exercise habits, lifestyle habits in terms of discipline, your mind, things that you would do, you know, just stuff like that. And I found it also interesting.
Cool.
So I'm like, okay, if you're gonna do something, this is the way to go. That's what I said to myself for me, because I always found your articles very informative and
Cool.
stimulating, mentally.
Cool. Okay, and so let's talk about you signing up and kind of where you were. And so obviously you're in this place where you're feeling lethargic, you're feeling old, right? You're like, oh my gosh, like you feel old, you feel sluggish, your eating is a little bit out of control. It sounds like it's not quite in control. And so are there any other kind of challenges when you started the program? Like, or any concerns when you started the program? You're like, can I do this? What were your thoughts?
Interesting. Well, also what had happened was a few months before that, I changed jobs. So that heavy schedule with that other firm was no longer on me. I changed jobs, got back into a situation, and the motivation for that also was I was just working too hard, putting in too many hours. And I'm like, something's got to give with that. So once I made that change, I'm like, I have no excuses, no. So the impetus was I had time. And one of the first thing I was going to do with some of that time that I bought back was I need to take care of myself. So I decided, okay, now that I have the time and I don't want to be on any medication that I don't have to take, if I don't have to take it, if there is some alternative way of doing this, let's pursue that. And that was really the impetus for me. Give it a shot, see if you can get this corrected without meds. Yes, it's going to be work. You have the time. Let's give it a shot. And I reached out.
Awesome. And so let's talk about your results, right? So listen, your first week, you might have a little bit of that kind of nervousness. You're like, is this going to work? Is this going to work? All that kind of stuff. So, overall, what results did you see of the program? I mean, you can talk about your results.
Well, I think when I first started, my expectations I was going to do whatever the program required for me to do. That was just my mindset. Years before, I had worked with a personal trainer many, many years before that when I had some medical situation going on and I really wanted to get well. So I knew for me, I was never going to get the results that I wanted to get doing it on my own. Because there were times when I tried that and I knew me. So I needed to put myself in a program where I felt I was going to be held accountable, where I needed to have metrics, measurements, expectations were laid out that I needed to follow this, and it was going to be tracked, and it wasn't just up to me to just track it arbitrarily. So when I saw what the program entailed, when we talked,
right,
I saw that it involved food and eating. That was probably the most stressful part of this for me, more than the working out, because I was always a very physical person. I thought at some point I could get up to speed with the exercising and all of that. But the food part of it was like, oh boy, here we go. I remember this. But I'm like, you know what? You probably haven't gotten success on your own up to this point because you haven't really addressed that part. My relationship with food was just not good.
So how did it change?
First of all, it changed because I wanted the results. It changed because I saw laid out how I should be eating, maybe some of the things I should be eating, some of the things I should not be eating or eating less of. And once I saw that, it all made sense. So I decided, well, let's just do this and see where you get after doing it. Give it a chance. Give it, and that's what I did. So yes, I had to get on some of the calls that BuiltLean hosted on the Fridays, I believe it was. And I would get on those calls. I would hear other guys talk, and I would just listen. I remember at times saying, "Oh boy, I'm real. I'm in now. Can I, step up?" But I was willing to give it a shot and step up. But it was interesting hearing some of those guys talk through, you know, the changes they had to make mentally, whatever. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. And I started changing. And I mean, the biggest thing for me, I wouldn't say the biggest thing, but sugar. I remember, okay, start small, make this the easy changes because it was not difficult. Stop putting sugar in your coffee. Don't put sugar in your tea. Stuff like that. So I started making the changes. And once I started making the changes, my appetite adjusted. Okay, I didn't miss the sugar anymore. Okay, I remember I said I was never a calorie counter. I would probably get a couple oatmeal raisin cookies. And we had something at the house. And that was one of the things, my wife, she understood, but she kind of needed to work with me to a certain extent to create an environment that would help me to be successful. But we had something either at our house or somebody else's house, and somehow dessert was in my refrigerator and was prepackaged. And I remember picking it up and looking at the label. And just one piece of this dessert was like 500 calories. I just went, I just put it back and I just stepped away.
You're like, I didn't see anything. That's hilarious.
But stuff like that. And I remember what I was supposed to eat in terms of calories, estimating calories at each meal. This was like well over half of the calories that I needed to have for a meal. I'm like, this is crazy. No wonder I'm out of control. Because prior to BuiltLean, I could have easily had two pieces of that piece of dessert and not even think about it. That would have been 1,000 calories with no nutritional value. My brain started to change in terms of how I was looking at food. And that was one of the first things that happened. And immediately I just made that shift mentally that I'll never go back to that. And to this day, I haven't gone back to that. I'm not saying I don't have dessert, but if I do have a piece of dessert, it's with the mindset that, okay, I know what I'm doing and I'm going to have to make up for this somehow for the rest of the day. I maybe need to do an extra 15 minutes in the gym or something. I'm not as careless.
It's not mindless.
Right. It's not mindless.
It's mindful, right? It's like, what's going on, which is
correct.
Powerful. Okay,
absolutely.
Cool. And so, as you're making this transformation, can you talk about the final? I think you lost 20 pounds. Is that
at least 20 pounds? I think I started the program. I started the program at 238 pounds.
Right. And so your height is
I'm 6'3".
Yeah, you're a tall guy.
Yeah, 6'3", and I was about 238. Actually, I was heavier than that before the program.
Right.
But I had already, every January, I kind of do a kind of fasting thing. So I was coming down from over 240 pounds.
Wow, okay.
So by the time I started BuiltLean, I was about 238. And I got as low as 212 pounds, actually.
Wow. Since the program. Wow.
Right.
That's
yeah.
Huge change.
Yes.
Huge change.
So right now I'm about 215, 216.
Okay. Nice.
So
nice.
That's BuiltLean basically, yeah, I think I feel a lot better. My knees feel a lot better. As a matter of fact, this fall, which I haven't done in 7 years or more, I signed up for singles tennis in the tennis league. I had stopped playing singles. Got my butt kicked on Thursday, but it was all good on Wednesday, actually. But I'm back on the court playing singles. I feel I can do that now. I'm going to build up to it, but I've dropped the weight. So I'm willing to take on challenges that I would never have thought of before.
Nice. That's phenomenal. That's what it's about, right? It's that, because before you were feeling old, you were feeling like your knee, everything was hurting. And now you're in a place where you're literally getting back in the game, right? You're
correct.
You're doing great, which is incredible. That's huge. And so, I'm curious, like, what did you like most about the program?
What did I like? Honestly, this is gonna sound crazy, maybe. I like most about the program the consciousness it brought to me about with eating. It was the biggest challenge before, and the part where I felt like I was going to struggle the most, and I did struggle. But this awareness around how I ate, what I ate, when maybe not so much when I ate, and I can still improve about when I eat because sometimes I still eat a little bit too late at night. I think I need to watch that. Not the program talk so much about when I ate, but being way more conscious about what I'm eating and how much I'm eating. I can never go back to what I used to do. And that's been kind of, I mean, riveted in me just over the couple months that I was in a program. I've made that mental shift and I can never go back to that.
Interesting. And so, as you know, I imagine you've done some other programs in the past. And what have you tried and like why didn't it work for you and help you make this change?
Well, okay, I worked with a personal trainer sometime in the past. That kind of worked up to a point, but there was never any discussion of food.
Right.
I was on my own with that. Anything else that I did, it was maybe an application that, I would pay for, internet based, but it was up to me to log the information. There was nobody touching base, no FaceTime with anybody else. Say, hey, Tony, how's it going? Nothing like that. It was kind of like just me, like going to the gym, maybe, doing some exercise routines, whatnot. It, what was missing in most of this other stuff was accountability. I was accountable to myself pretty much. That doesn't work. Does not work for me. With the personal trainer that I worked with some years in the past, that kind of worked because I knew that if he's at the gym waiting on me, 5 o'clock Thursday evening, I needed to be there. So I would be there. Mm-hmm. But what was missing was the food part altogether. Not being educated as to how to eat, what to eat, and so on. And I would read stuff on the internet myself and kind of try to educate myself on stuff. But that'll take you so far, and there's just so much stuff out there that's not properly researched or well informed that you need somebody that's their business to kind of tell you that. So that didn't work long term. And then again, working the job and doing all the things that I do for my job, that stuff easily got pushed to the background where if it's dependent on me to go do what I needed to do, I gave other things priority over that. So
that makes perfect sense, by the way. It's a reflection of kind of priorities, right? Other things, if you don't really kind of want to do something, you'd be like, something else is going to take priority, right?
Right.
I hear you. And so, obviously you've done the BuiltLean workouts. I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on the workouts and how they've worked for you.
Well, on the workout front, I remember when I first started doing the workouts, I'm like, oh, this is easy. And then I started, getting into it. And then maybe it was after the first week, I realized, wow, this is not as easy as I thought. By the second week, it started picking up. I'm like, okay. And then I started observing the videos, right, looking at the form. And then I realized, okay, I'm really not mirroring the form that I'm seeing here. I was cheating, but I didn't realize I was cheating. But I realized I'm going to get my money's worth out of this. Let this work for you. And then as I started trying to conform to what I was seeing in terms of how the workouts are actually being done and trying to maintain the intensity, the time between the breaks between whatever, just trying to follow the video. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a challenge. I really need to stay true to this. And as I started getting into it, of course, I didn't see result within the first week, 2 weeks, whatnot. But by after the first maybe 3 weeks or so, I started feeling stronger, especially in my lower body. And that was big for me, the stability in my legs, because I was starting to, almost believe that at 60 years old, 61, going on 62, that this was normal. Maybe this was acceptable. And doing the workouts and hearing some of the discussion, I realized, nah, this is probably not normal or acceptable. You don't have to believe that because you're getting older, that you should be losing strength or feel unstable. So don't believe that. Just follow the workouts and see what happens. And by the, maybe 2-3 weeks in, I started feeling more stable in my legs. And then that was encouraging. So it's a little bit of encouragement. It was more impetus to, okay, get into this. And I really tried to do the workouts and not cheat.
And so one challenge a lot of guys have, and I know you certainly have, is, and everyone has this, is like people around you. Hey, I'm feeling old. This is feeling, this is not working out. All my age. Everyone's complaining about their age around you. So it's like, it's in your mind. You're like, wait. Then you start making these same excuses, and then, you know what I'm saying? So you went against the grain, right? Because, and it was a cool thing is by being part of Built Lean and by hearing a different perspective, you're able to not listen to everyone else, right? So
it's funny you should put it like that. I was playing tennis. I play tennis.
Right.
And the guys I play tennis with in Roslyn, they are all older than me. And this one's having back surgery. This one's having knee surgery. This one's having hip surgery. And I was falling into that mindset. Once I got with the BuiltLean program and starting hearing the talk and getting results, immediately I got turned off from listening to that tennis group and some of what those guys are going through. I'm like, that's not going to be me. That's what kind of also changing mentally in my head.
That's huge. Because by the way, that's one of the mental blocks, right? Guys saying, oh, I'm too old to do this. I'm too old and I'm too old. And it's like, that starts becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I'm too old to do this. Then you don't do that. And then you kind of go downhill, right? Whereas,
yep.
Right. So that's powerful. Cool. That's definitely a challenge because, as you know, the obesity rate keeps on going up. People are having more and more trouble and challenges as they age. And so you're bucking that trend. So well done. And I also want to give your wife a shout out, by the way, because she certainly helps support you. And I want to ask your thoughts on that, because listen, most of the guys who we work with, and a lot of the guys, they're married with kids. And it's like, if they don't have their wife on board, that could be a big challenge. So I want to hear a little bit more about like your wife supporting you and how you helped her get on board, or she was just already on board, like how that worked.
Well, first of all, the eating part was where she helped me the most, I'd say, because I kind of told her basically, look, I'm cutting out the sugar, all this dessert and stuff. I'm done with that. I'm not doing that anymore. And I just kind of gave her big picture what my eating was going to be like. I said, they tell me I can have as much vegetable as I want. She's a gluten-free person. She really doesn't eat meat. Mm-hmm. But she knows that I always love to eat a good steak and whatnot. But I told her I'm going to be cutting back. She says, great. No, you won't go to this Tex-Mex place anymore, she would say. While I started a BuiltLean program, maybe I went to the Tex-Mex place once or twice. And she would say to me, I thought you were going to cut that out. So she would, catch me up, so to speak, point fingers. I thought you said I'm like, okay, you're right. So early on, she kind of helped me to toe the line. Then she started cooking differently. And she would actually put the food on the plate sometimes for me. Not often, but so I'd get a lot more vegetable. I'd get smaller portions of meat or chicken. And so she really kind of helped me in that regard. I'm an island boy. I grew up in the islands. I love my rice and beans. She knew I had to cut that back. So she would cook a lot less rice, or not cook rice maybe more than once or twice per week. So it wasn't there to be eaten anyway, but she always cooked a lot more vegetables. And she would cook more fish. So she started preparing meals that was more consistent with how I needed to eat. And that was a big change. And she would remind me, Okay, you said you weren't going to do this. You said you weren't going to do that.
Nice.
So that was helpful. Not that I didn't know, but I would just knowing she was watching or observing, kind of like, okay, that's good.
I wish we could say, she was on the BuiltLean payroll now. She wasn't. We were feeding her, telling her what to do. That's great that she really helped you, and that's an important thing. Is to like, what advice would you give to a guy to help their wife get on board if they're maybe not quite on board?
I think you just need to have that conversation with them up front. Just kind of lay out big picture for them, how you need to be eating, so that they're aware of it, and try to, by telling them that, like for my wife, she would not put me in situations where I would be compromised. So she wouldn't buy certain things because I told her. And she's my wife. She loves me. She cares about me. She cares about my health. And she's a much smaller person than I am. And she saw that I definitely was not the healthiest that she had seen me. So she was concerned and wanted me to get it corrected as well. So it was not a big deal for her to get on board in that regard.
Right.
And seeing that she's generally a healthy eater, and I was not, it was not a problem she had. So she was glad to see that I was now willing to more or less fall in line with more where she was. Because she always criticized my eating, but I never cared. That was my situation. For another guy, maybe it might be a different situation for them in terms of how their partner eats. But from the perspective of my wife, no. She was glad to see that I was willing to take that in hand and try to control it some. So she worked with me to make that happen. But I think for anybody, if they educate their partner, it shouldn't be a big deal.
Okay. And so a couple more questions is, what do your friends and family think about your transformation? Like, what have they said? What's been the feedback?
I laugh because, my son-in-law, he's had his ups and downs with this. And he's tried different, I don't want to call them dieting fads or anything. I remember once he was doing, there's this one where you eat mostly high fats.
Keto.
And a lot of the keto. It worked for him. But like within a matter of months after that, he was bigger than before he was on keto. I remember trying the keto thing, probably almost ended me up in a hospital. My cholesterol was through the roof. So that didn't work for me. Not to stray too much from your question, though. He saw me and, like months afterwards, of like, wow, you look really good.
Nice.
His wife, my daughter, says, Daddy, so do you plan on losing more weight? Because I guess she looked at me and I don't know if it was, they live in New Jersey and I'm in, Eastern Long Island. So we're in a Zoom call and maybe she saw my neck or saw that, I would just slim down, and she's like, was a little bit concerned. Are you losing, do you want to lose more weight? I think you look fine. And then they saw me in person and they were like really surprised, like, wow, So I from immediate family, I could hear them obviously seeing the results. For me, because it's a gradual process, maybe it hadn't dawned on me the changes that had taken place in terms of the weight I'd lost. But they obviously saw it. And people at the gym, the guys I played tennis with, I remember one of them, some comment like, oh, you're disappearing. Look at you. So, of course, once you start getting that comment here and there from near and far, mentally, I'm like, okay, cool. This is awesome. People see it. Not that I was doing it for people, but it was encouraging that others had seen it. I remember there's this guy, a lawyer guy I used to play tennis with, and this was like going back before COVID, 4 years ago. I'm like, he looked great, and he could move. I'm like, what do you do? How do you stay so slim? And he was like, just, offhand comment here and there, and nothing that was really helpful or instructive that would help me to accomplish that. And I remember, no, I'm that guy. I'm the slim guy. I'm the guy that can move well on the court with these older fogies who we play doubles with. So I felt like I was that guy for a change. And that was encouraging. That was, I felt good.
Nice, man. That's phenomenal, Tony. So I'm kind of curious. So what advice would you give for someone who is kind of struggling where you were and on the fence, should they set up a free breakthrough call, and consider, like, what would you say to that man?
I regret having not done this earlier. It took, going to the doctor, hearing the doctor say what he said, feeling uncomfortable, being on cholesterol drugs, for me to finally say, you know what, I need to take this in hand. And there was really no excuse or no reason to not start earlier. And the earlier you start, it's the more you give yourself a head start to getting to where you want to get. Today, sitting down, having this discussion, knowing how I feel, knowing the habits that I've now formed and that I'm continuing to maintain, maybe not perfectly, but totally mindful, not mindless, and conscious of, the improvements that I still want to make. I just regret that I didn't start it earlier. And that's me. For example, again, just my perspective, I don't like taking medication. To go to the doctor's office and for the doctor to kind of run through my charts and say, okay, he's looking through, oh, you're on this, right? Because he had put me only on one med. I'm like, no, doc, not doing it anymore. He looks up at me and he's like, no. I'm saying, nope, sorry, I'm not taking that anymore. And he says, well, okay. And he wants me to get on a scale. I'm like, no, I'm not getting on your scale. It's not right. Because I'm watching my weight, measuring myself like, almost 3-4 times a week. I said, this is my weight. And at that time when I told him that, I had already dropped almost 20 pounds from when I was last at his office. And I said, and that's why I'm not taking the drug anymore, because I've dropped the weight and I have made a conscious decision to change my lifestyle. And because I've made that decision, that drug is no longer necessary. And once my blood tests and whatnot come back, I expect that I'll never hear mentioned in the same sentence with my name anymore the term pre-diabetic. And he turns on and he looks up at me and he says, wow, good for you. Nothing lasts forever, though. I'm thinking to myself, what? You shouldn't be saying that to me. You should be encouraging me. And then he looks at me. The next sentence was, you know what? I lost weight too. I'm like, well, good for you. That's what I said to the doctor. He said, the truth is, too many guys don't make the decision to take things in their hands, working, for example, like a program like BuiltLean. And that's why doctors write the scripts that they do and give out the prescriptions that they do, because they don't want you to die either. So you're either going to take the drug or you're going to do something like BuiltLean. But you need to do something. I would rather do BuiltLean than the drug. That's me. So I don't fault that doctor by any means. That's his profession. That's what he does. So you're going to follow them or you're going to follow this. I'd rather do this. It's natural. It's healthier. And if at some point, God forbid, that I need to be on a drug, but I don't need to be on a drug today. And he agrees. He said, okay, let's just watch this. He agrees with me. The doctor does now. And he says, I'm no longer pre-diabetic.
There you go, my friend. Amen to that. Amen to that. We can end there. So Tony, man, wow, I really, really appreciate, all that great information. And I think it's really motivating for other guys, whether or not they want to, reach out to us or just do it. Like, it's all good. Like, I think what you shared is really powerful. Super awesome. And huge congrats on you.
Thank you.
On you having the courage to step up and make the change, right? Because that's the hardest part, is like making that decision to be like, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm going to make the change. I'm going to do this now. So well done, my friend.
I appreciate it, Mark. Thank you very much. It's really good talking with you about all of this. Thanks.